Now, let's not kid ourselves here, no matter how much we might want to believe otherwise. The NFL isn't looking for great leaders and looking for guys that could be pillars of their community and incredible citizens both on and off the field. They're not looking for perfect angels. They are looking for football players. They care about talent. They care about getting the best talents they can. They care about winning football games, which you need to have talent in order to be able to win said football games. If you think anything other than that is the truth, you are sadly mistaken. Which brings us to the curious case of Dorial Green-Beckham. When you look at Dorial Green-Beckham, you just look at him. That's the first thing you notice. His physical gifts are incredible. You're talking about a guy, a legit 6'5", 6'6", almost 240 pounds, and can run the 40 in 4.49 seconds. It's not every day you come across that type of big-time, legitimate, freakish athlete. Legitimate, freakish athlete. Those physical gifts you can't buy. Those physical gifts you can't teach. You either have them or you don't. And Dorial Green-Beckham has them in great abundance. He has that size-speed combination that no NFL corner should be able to match, that no NFL defensive back should be able to contend with. At 6'5", 200, almost 40 pounds, running a sub-4.5 40, this guy should be a monster. This guy is unstoppable from a physical standpoint. When you combine his length with his leaping ability to be able to make that most difficult catch and his ability to adjust to those poorly thrown balls, with that speed at that size to be able to get over the top of NFL defenses, and a guy that you just look at it and you see it and you understand it. You look at a Dorial Green-Beckham and you say, oh my God, this guy is a freak. Oh my God, this guy is a once-in-a-decade type of talent. Oh my God, Dorial Green-Beckham should be a top 5 pick in this 2015 NFL draft. But then there's the other side of Dorial Green-Beckham. We're talking about a guy who missed the entire 2014 college season at a time where he really needed that playing time because he needed a lot of work on his game. Because in 2013 at Missouri, frankly, he coasted by on his physical gifts. He's coasted by on that size, speed, length, athleticism combination. He had a long way to go to be a polished wide receiver. He had a long way to go to be a real polished future NFL wide receiver. And because of his ability to not be a knucklehead, because of his ability to not be his own worst enemy, he got himself kicked off of the team at Missouri. He had to go transfer to Oklahoma, where he sat out the entire 2014 season. So here's a guy that was already raw to begin with, that missed a season of what could have been really critical development time, and now you're talking about potentially spending a high pick on him in the 2015 NFL draft. That should give teams pause, and a lot of pause for concern, especially when you look at him off the field. I mean, here's a guy that's gotten busted for marijuana several times, some robbery issues, some issues when it comes to domestic violence with women. I mean, there's all types of red flags all over the place that make you sit there and say, no matter how physically talented this player is he going to be worth the headache? Is he going to be worth the bullshit? Or are we just going to be sitting there and putting a lot of hopes on this guy, and at that point in time where we would give him a massive contract, he would let us down and screw the pooch and hurt our organization for years? Those are the things with Dorial Green-Beckham, man. You see a lot of it, but you have a lot of reasons to be concerned. And even from an on-the-field football standpoint, there are reasons to be concerned. His route running needs major work. And I don't care how good the practices were under Bob Stoops in 2014 at Oklahoma. The best way to improve is in the game and in-game situations. And Dorial Green-Beckham missed a pivotal, critical year of his development because he was a fucking knucklehead. He's also a long strider who does take some time to get moving. He's with 6'5", almost 6'6" frame. You'd expect he's a long strider. Once he gets going, he can be tough to keep up with. But he can be a guy, because of his lack of consistency and ability to be able to use his frame better versus press coverage, he's a guy at 6'5", 6'6" that you can get up on, that smaller corners can have success with because of his ability as a long strider. he doesn't have the greatest quickness or initial separation or suddenness. You get up in him, and he doesn't understand quite yet how to use his body well in press coverage to be able to beat that press coverage. This is a guy with that size, with that athleticism, that you look at and you say, this is a guy that we can contain. This is a guy defensively that we can minimize because he's not much of an open field threat with the ball, especially in space over the middle, because he really doesn't like to go over the middle all that much. His effort is not consistent. It's not consistent as a blocker either. There's a lot of things to be concerned with Dorial Green-Beckham. There really are. He is a guy that could have benefited from playing 2014, and instead he missed the season. Here's a guy that is far, far, far from a polished or finished product. Here's a guy that more likely than not you're going to be drafting with the hope that he's going to reach and be able to get to the peak of what his immense potential upside could be. Because make no mistake about it, Dorial Green-Beckham has tremendous upside. And he has a tremendous, tremendous ceiling. The highest ceiling of any wide receiver prospect in this 2015 NFL draft, and it's not even close. Let's cut through the bullshit right now. If Dorial Green-Beckham plays at Missouri in 2014, Dorial Green-Beckham is easily the #1 wide receiver prospect in this draft class. It's true. What other team is going to pass on him at almost 6'6", 240 pounds, running a sub-4 540 with his hands, his length, and his leaping ability, the ability to get the ball, the ability to adjust to those poorly thrown balls, the ability to get the jump ball? How the hell can you defend him? Even if he doesn't do the best job of getting separation, even if he struggles against press coverage, even if he is a long strider, what the hell does it matter? He's 6'6". He can jump and he can fly. I mean, if he was able to keep his nose clean off the field and he didn't get himself kicked off of the Missouri team and he didn't have to go to Oklahoma and sit out a year, Dorial Green-Beckham is the #1 wide receiver prospect in this draft. No question about it, especially if he didn't have the off-the-field baggage. We'd be talking about him as a top 5 pick. We'd be talking about him maybe needing to go as high as #2 or #3 in this draft, period. When I look at an NFL comparison for Dorial Green-Beckham, I've heard Brandon Marshall, which I see some of that both in his game on and off the field. I've heard some A.J. Green because of the length and speed combination, and again, I get that too. But the guy he reminds me of the most is Mike Evans. Another physical freak, more athleticism and speed than people think, that has the ability to make those big-time special plays and make them in great abundance in a variety of ways. While I don't think he's quite as physical as Mike Evans just yet, and not as finished of a product as Mike Evans was coming out of Texas A&M, there are a lot of similarities that really jump out to me on film. And I will put it to you this way. Would you take a Mike Evans with the top 10 pick? Would you take a Mike Evans as your potential #1 wide receiver on most NFL teams? You goddamn right you would. Again, Dorial Green-Beckham, from a physical talent standpoint, is the #1 talent at this position in this year's draft. He is a very raw player. He missed a critical, important season in his development. He's a guy that comes with a lot of off-field baggage. He could end up being freaking Jonathan Baldwin, a guy that just never really does anything. But he's a guy that could also, in 3 years, be that Randy Moss type of talent that the teams that passed him regret it for years that they passed him, and the team that does draft him and takes that chance will be sitting there and laughing all the way to the bank. Again, Dorial Green-Beckham, from a physical standpoint, is easily a top 5 talent in this draft. The funny thing is, though, because of how badly he hurt himself with the previous off-the-field incidents and the fact that he missed all of the 2014 season because he had to sit out with his transferring to Oklahoma, he's a guy that I could see going anywhere from at the end of the top 10 to all the way to the end of round 1, maybe into the beginning or middle portion of round #2 if he doesn't test out that well from an interview standpoint. If the background checks lead several teams to take him off of his board. But I have to say this. NFL teams, again, aren't looking for choir boys. NFL teams aren't looking for great pillars of the community. You can screw all the bullshit about this, that, and everything else talking about image. NFL teams are in desperate need and desire of a big-time physical freak #1 wide receiver. And that's the type of talent that Dorial Green-Beckham is. For my money right now, he's the #3 wide receiver on this 2015 NFL draft class, in part because of how raw he is as a prospect. In fact, also I have to factor in that I don't know if his availability is going to be great if he's not going to be able to keep his nose clean off the field. If he didn't have that baggage and he had played in 2014, he's the #1 wide receiver in this draft. I would not be surprised in 2 or 3 years if we look back and we say Dorial Green-Beckham was the #1 guy, and how could more teams not take this chance? How many teams look stupid because they didn't take this chance? But we could also be looking back at Dorial Green-Beckham in 2 or 3 years and being, I told you he couldn't keep his nose clean, and what a shame. And what a shame it would be, because this guy has all the potential in the world to be a freak and a big-time producer as a #1 wide receiver at the NFL level.